Today we're going to analyze Deutschland from Rammstein.
We are Lisa and Greg, an American couple living abroad in Spain. If you're curious about the crazy, funny, and surprising differences between the US and Europe, you came to the right place. Today's video is brought to you by 3 Arrows, and Lisa will include a link in the description so you can go and show them some love.
Yes. So everybody, not everybody, but almost everybody was recommending this video to understand the video itself, the Deutschland video.
Yeah.
Because I think,
we watched it on the Sounds of Saturday and we were probably looking a little confused.
Yeah, there was a lot of meaning behind it, and we knew there was. I think we understood the gist of it.
Right.
Of it, the love-hate relationship that a lot of Germans could be having.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of scenes that we were like, we didn't know, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Right.
And
you suggested that we watch this so we can get answers to that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It was the most comprehensive analysis of that song.
That's right. So before we jump into this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video so you can become a part of the family. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Hey, Best Arrows in the Game here, coming in with some media analysis about a very controversial piece of media that was released by one of Germany's most successful cultural exports.
I heard it was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said the government didn't like it.
Oh, really?
That's why it was controversial.
I mean, some of the stuff looked, just the images seemed a little controversial.
That's true. That's
So
true.
people, yeah.
Okay, so controversial.
Yes.
Very controversial piece of media that was released by one of Germany's most successful cultural exports a couple of months ago. Of course, I'm talking about the band which single-handedly taught the world the German words "Du hast," Rammstein. In the wake of the band releasing a snippet of their music video for the song Deutschland, or Germany, there has been quite a lot of condemnation hurled in that direction. An Israeli
German rock band sparks outrage over tasteless video referencing Holocaust.
Jewish groups condemn rock band for crossing a red line.
Or Germany, there has been quite a lot of condemnation hurled in that direction. An Israeli ambassador calling it shameful and demanding immediate removal. Former head of Germany's Jewish Council said the band was exploiting the suffering and murder of millions for entertainment purposes, and the government's commissioner for anti-Semitism said the band had crossed the red line. Despite that, the song immediately became a #1 hit, and its music video is close to 80 million clicks on YouTube. So let's talk about it, and maybe we can make sense.
That in itself makes it a little controversial, because, well, a lot of controversial, because you have all these people that are against it, but then it would like skyrocketed, so it's almost like getting confirmation that, you know, it in a way it makes the people against it look bad, I guess. Or,
look bad. Look like automatically it's like, oh, they're looking at it in a scope versus at a broader perspective. Right. So that's automatically, since we saw the video, their criticism makes me think that they're just like analyzing it like that.
Well, yeah, but it's also their perspective because of what that time meant to them, because they were all Jewish groups.
I know.
So, yeah.
Of it all as we go through the video and decipher what's shown, what it might mean, and at the end, we'll talk about if this reaction is warranted. But please, while you're watching this, keep in mind that everything I say in this video is completely right, uncontroversial, and not up for argument.
Wow.
The video opens showing Roman soldiers walking through a forest with the title card reading Germania Magna, which was the Roman term for the region in...
Oh, you hear how you said that?
Oh, yes.
Germania Magna.
Oh, yeah.
We were saying
different
Germania.
Germania.
Yeah.
Oh.
Germania Magna.
Germania.
Central... With the title card reading Germania Magna, which was the Roman term for the region in North Central Europe and home of the Germanic tribes. We see the soldiers walking up to a tree which has several bodies hanging from its branches and encountering a black woman cutting off the head of another Roman soldier. At first, I thought this scene was a depiction of the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. When the Romans sought to bring the regions that will later become Germany under their control, they suffered a disastrous blow at the hands of Arminius, who was taken from his tribe as a little boy, received Roman military training, but later returned to Germania Magna, uniting previously hostile Germanic tribes against the Romans. Obviously, an immensely important point in German history. There are a bunch of memorials dedicated to Arminius, and this historical moment is often seen as the birth of the German people. Besides the thick forest, another indicator that this scene is referencing this battle.
So Did you understand that?
So it is referencing, because he said, I thought it was. And so maybe that's what it is referencing.
Yeah.
Only the band members.
I rewound it a bit so we can see it again.
Woman soldier. At first, I thought this scene was a depiction of the Battle of Teutoburg Forest.
He said at first. So what? I'm wondering, he's saying at first I thought it was this, but I'm wondering if now he's going to say, just kidding, it's something else.
Right.
Yeah. At first, I thought this scene was a depiction of the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. When the Romans sought to bring the regions that will later become Germany under their control, they suffered a disastrous blow at the hands of Arminius, who was taken from his tribe as a little boy, received Roman military training, but later returned to Germania Magna, uniting previously hostile Germanic tribes against the Romans. Obviously, an immensely important point in German history. There are a bunch of memorials dedicated to Arminius, and this historical moment is often seen as the birth of the German people.
So that's interesting. So they're fighting against the Romans. I think that's what he said. Like that guy came back. That person came back and united all of the people of the, I guess what is now Germany,
to fight against the Romans.
Them. So that's how they think that's the birth of it.
Besides the thick forest, another indicator that this scene is referencing this battle are the Roman soldiers hanging from the trees. Because legend has it that after the battle, a Roman was hung from or nailed to every tree in the Teutoburg forest. And while this battle might be an influence, the year 16 AD doesn't quite fit, so it might also show the campaigns of Germanicus, who sought to bring the region under Rome's control from 14 AD to 16 AD. But since these campaigns also failed, the takeaway pretty much remains the same, namely the uprising of the Germanic people against the Romans. The black woman the Roman soldiers encounter is not supposed to represent a literal person in the context of the video, but is supposed to serve as the personification of Germany itself. She takes on the role of Germania, which has been the stand-in for Germany for hundreds of years. Some of you might be wondering why Germania, the personification of Germany, is portrayed by a black woman, which are a minority of Germans. Well, trust me when I say it will become clear when we look at the lyrics in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Someone had said to relate it to us, she said, like in the United States, Uncle Sam is like a representation, even though I don't even know what Uncle Sam would look like, but that's what she was kind of saying.
Yeah.
That.
Well, there's an image of Uncle Sam.
Oh, is it that
like
guy?
An older white guy with the like big beard.
Oh,
and
okay.
the hat.
That's Uncle Sam. Okay, so it's like that is how she was trying to help me understand, or help us understand how that works.
Uncle Sam in the United States is like that's what they call the government. Is Uncle Sam?
Or does it represent the United States? Does he represent the United States in a way or some form?
I think he represents the United States government.
Or like the federal government, like Uncle Sam is going to take your taxes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not exactly. Okay.
Well, trust me when I say it will become clear when we look at the lyrics in a couple of minutes. Our next historical setting is some sort of cellar in which two guys are beating the hell out of one another with brass knuckles. Judging from the clothes and hairstyles, I think it's safe to say this is supposed to be set during the Weimar years. The setting specifically might speak to the large amount of violence in this period and the...
I wonder... he's not saying what those years were, so maybe they can share with the Weimar.
Weimar,
in the United States, it looks like the Roaring 20s.
Right, but he called it something, a German word. So.
Right, yeah.
The setting specifically might speak to the large amount of violence in this period, and the whole scene resembles the dance on the volcano image we have of the Weimar years as a period of swing and cultural progress on one side, and social upheaval and violence on the other. Now, violent political clashes weren't unusual even before that period, but in the 1920s it took on a whole new quality. For instance, in 1920, a group of reactionaries executed a successful coup in Germany's capital and seized control of the parliament. And while this coup only lasted 100 hours in total due to a nationwide general strike, it kicked off a chain of violence much more grim than your average political altercation. As a response to this coup, something called the Ruhr Red Army had risen up in West Germany, but after the initial right-wing coup was defeated by the general strike, this army's goal shifted to revolution. What followed was the now reinstated government sending in armed forces to put down this rebellion, with over 2,000 Germans being killed in the process. And not just due to fighting, but mass executions afterwards. This kind of violence is much better described as regional civil wars than just violent clashes between opposing sides. As Mark Jones writes in his book, Founding Weimar, Violence in the German Revolution.
Oh, there it is. Weimar.
Yeah, interesting. It was like a civil war. Didn't know that they had one.
Mm-hmm. Violence of the German Revolution of 1918 and 1919. Mark Jones.
Between opposing sides. As Mark Jones writes in his book, Founding Weimar, Violence in the German Revolution 1918-1919, at this stage of history, violence was politics and politics was violence. Any attempt to present the two as separate historical chapters would misjudge the basic character of this epoch. The violent clashes defining Germany's interwar period, especially early on, didn't just involve fists or milkshakes. It involved machine guns, it involved artillery, and mass executions. In fact, the first bomb dropped onto Berlin wasn't dropped by the Allies in World War II, but during the Berlin March fights in 1919 by government forces fighting revolutionaries. This scene communicates a level of political violence that would very much shape Germany's way forward. Next up, we have an office with the band being dressed as party higher-ups of the SED regime during East Germany's time as a socialist dictatorship. The lead singer is dressed up as Erich Honecker, in his time General Secretary for the Central Committee of the Socialist Unity Party. Later in the video, we see them partying, popping champagne bottles, and generally acting very unrestrained. And this imagery is quite common in artistic portrayals of East Germany's ruling party. The DDR was, from beginning to end, plagued by a lack of consumer goods, like toilet paper, for instance, which was notoriously scarce, heating material in the winter, drinks in the summer, and so on. Partially this was due to reasons out of the ruling party's influence, like having less trading partners available than their Western counterpart, but also due to sheer incompetence or political decisions like prioritizing heavy industry over the production of consumer goods. In 1958, the party even started a program titled 1,000 Little Things, promising to deliver all the stuff that was lacking, like can openers, razor blades, all those little things. The stated long-term goal of these programs was to raise living standards to a level that would eventually exceed living standards in Western Germany. While this goal specifically was never met, there were ways to get around the problem of lacking consumer goods.
Oh, so this was all happening in Eastern Germany.
Yeah,
it
in
was
the
a
50s.
party. Okay. Yeah. I know he's using a lot of abbreviations we've never heard.
Yeah.
But they're political parties.
Right.
Okay.
Goal specifically was never met, there were ways to get around the problem of lacking consumer goods. One of these ways was to rise through the ranks of the ruling party, which came with a lot of benefits, like a greater variety of food being available to you, or skipping ahead in waiting lists to get a car. Portraying the ruling party of the DDR in this way is often used to show the hypocrisy of a leadership chastising the West for perpetuating an unjust class system, while at the same time disregarding the notion of equality when it came to themselves.
That's interesting. You understand that? He's basically saying they make fun of the West for being all these elites, but then in their country, they're trying hard to become elites so they can get all this stuff.
Okay.
So it's like hypocrisy.
Right.
Class system, while at the same time disregarding the notion of equality when it came to themselves. The members of the band all grew up in East Germany and lived under this regime, so that might explain why they not only included this imagery in their video, but also include this set of lyrics in the song.
Oh, wow.
You have cried a lot, separated in mind, united in heart. Most likely a reference to Germany's forceful separation and the suffering connected to it. Lots of people couldn't see their family members anymore or were murdered attempting to flee the East.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I want to see that again.
A set of lyrics in the song. You have cried a lot, separated in mind, united in heart. Most likely a reference to Germany's forceful separation and the suffering connected to it. Lots of people couldn't see their family members anymore or were murdered attempting to flee the East. In their song Radio from the same album, they are even more explicit in their critique of the DDR, and the song revolves around censorship and escaping a largely closed-down society via the radio, with which you were able to catch signals from the West. And while we're on the topic of East Germany, there's a shot later in the video showing riot police sitting on a tank in front of a giant Karl Marx head. And in case you don't know, this head exists in real life in the city of Chemnitz, formerly known as Karl Marx City. What the tank and the riot police are supposed to reference in combination with this monument is open to interpretation, but one possible event might be the East German Uprising of 1953.
Oh, wow.
As a response to a race in work quotas, which basically means more work for the same salary, construction workers went on a strike not only demanding to drop the quotas, but broad democratization and political freedoms. As more and more workers joined the protests, the government decided to deal with these demands by violently suppressing the uprising, turning to the Soviet Union for military aid. Soviet tanks were deployed, military and police opened fire on protesters, and dozens were killed.
Oh, damn. That's crazy.
Tanks were deployed, military and police opened fire on protesters, and dozens were killed. Next up, we have the band being led through a prison while receiving physical abuse and money raining down from the ceiling. And while the scene takes place in a former DDR prison, the clothes of the inmates and Germania being dressed in what seems like a parade uniform of the Garde Dragoner regiment alludes to the early Weimar years again. Up until 1923, incarceration and the treatment you received in the criminal justice system were supposed to serve deterrence. Under the new social democratic government, this changed and physical abuse as well as confinement in a darkened cell were abolished. The concept of resocialization didn't really seep through to the actual prison guards, and the abuse of inmates continued throughout the Weimar years. 1923 was also the year of...
Didn't seep through to the guards. It's like they didn't get the memo.
Yeah, they didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
The concept of resocialization didn't really seep through to the actual prison guards, and the abuse of inmates continued throughout the Weimar years. 1923 was also the year of the hyperinflation, which might be referenced by all this cash raining down. Inflation was already quite rampant in the German Empire, since you can't really fight a world war with pocket change. But when it really hit the fan was when French and Belgian forces occupied parts of the Ruhr area due to Germany's inability to pay demanded reparations. Naturally, this sudden occupation outraged the German public, and the country's leadership called for passive resistance. Workers in the area went on a general strike and did everything possible to sabotage the efforts of the occupiers.
Passive resistance. So I wonder what that looks like. I mean, I guess this is what he's showing us right now.
Just newspaper articles and...
Yeah. Outraged the German public, and the country's leadership called for passive resistance. Workers in the area went on a general strike and did everything possible to sabotage.
So that's like passive resistance.
Yeah, general strike.
General strike.
And workers.
Yeah. The efforts of the occupiers. But those workers still had to be paid, which the German government couldn't, so they created even more money out of nothing, which led the inflation to explode.
Oh, wow.
By the end of the year, people had to carry their money in wheelbarrows when going to the store, because a single egg, for instance, cost 320 billion Reichsmark. A very scary time, as you can imagine. Here's how the German correspondent of the British Daily Mail described the situation, and luckily, I could avoid faking a British accent for this quote.
In the shops, the prices are typewritten and posted hourly. For instance, a gramophone at 10 a.m. was 5 million marks, but at 3 p.m. it was 12 million marks. A copy of the Daily Mail purchased on the street yesterday cost 35,000 marks, but today it costs 60,000 marks.
It got so bad that if you were to sit down in a...
It was hourly changes.
Yeah.
Wow.
But today it costs 60,000 marks.
It got so bad that if you were to sit down in a cafe and order a coffee, while you were sitting there, the price for that coffee might have gone up from 5,000 to 8,000 marks. The impacts of this inflation are impossible to list, but naturally, due to many people no longer being able to afford basic necessities, crowds began to riot, loot food stores, and violence again ran rampant. However, the biggest impact of this inflation is one that wasn't immediately visible, because when people lose faith in the economic system, they also lose faith in the political system.
Hyperinflation became a trauma whose influence affected the behavior of Germans of all classes long afterwards. It added to the feeling in the more conservative sections of the population of a world turned upside down, first by defeat, then by revolution, and now by economics. It destroyed faith in the neutrality of law as a social regulator between debtors and creditors, rich and poor, and undermined notions of the fairness and equity that the law was supposed to maintain. It debased the language of politics already driven to hyperbolic overemphasis by the events of 1918 to 19. It lent new power to stock fantasy images of evil, not just the criminal and the gambler, but also the speculator, and, fatefully, the financially manipulative Jew.
In addition to that, with this economic crisis, the novelty of the Weimar system had significantly worn off, and the people who were in favor of this new republic had less and less in their arsenal to argue for preserving it. The next scene we're going to look at is the one that caused the earlier mentioned controversy. We see the band dressed as inmates of a Nazi concentration camp lined up at the gallows, awaiting their public execution. And there are some details worked into this scene that are easy to miss. If we take a closer look at the uniforms of the band members, we can see that the bass player of the band is marked as gay, the person next to him as a Jew, and the lead singer wears a combination supposed to identify political prisoners who are also Jewish, so a Jewish socialist, for instance. Judging from the rockets in the background, this scene most likely takes place in the concentration camp Middleba, which is the site where the V2 rocket was built. The V in V2 standing for Vergeltung, or retribution. The The weapon in itself wasn't really of any use to the Nazis except for propaganda purposes, and more people actually died during its manufacturing than the rockets killed when reaching their destination. While Rammstein shows this specific image of a public execution clearly set at the V2 manufacturing site is anyone's guess, but it might reference a great injustice connected to this camp specifically. The manufacturing of the V2 rocket at Middleba Dora happened via a company called Middleba GmbH, whose general director was a guy named Georg Rickhey.
GmbH is, I guess that's how you say GmbH.
Oh. Okay.
A company called Middleba GmbH, whose general director was a guy named Georg Rickhey. Obviously, this wasn't an ordinary company, but one that was deeply built around the exploitation of concentration camp inmates, and thus co-responsible for the over 20,000 deaths connected to the manufacturing of the V2 rocket. After the war was over, 19 people were put on trial for what happened at this site, one among them, the general director of the Middleba GmbH, Georg Rickhey. During the trial, a former inmate testified that he remembered Rickhey to be present at a particularly cruel mass execution of 30 inmates in March 1945. It wasn't simply a mass execution though, but a mass strangulation. Rickhey denied this and also any involvement in implementing the cruel and inhumane work practices at the site, something uncovered documents will later prove to be a lie. He ended up being acquitted without an explanation given and, well, go back to where he was living before the trial, which happened to be the United States. He was one of many German engineers, technicians and scientists brought to the US in something called Operation Paperclip. Here you can see former NSDAP and SS member Kurt Debus, who became the first director of NASA.
That's Lyndon Johnson right there, I think.
Oh, and JFK. So I've heard of this paperclip. I feel like someone mentioned it, but I don't know much about it. Oh, gosh.
Let's see.
Engineers, technicians and scientists brought to the US in something called Operation Paperclip. Here you can see former NSDAP and SS member Kurt Debus, who became the first director of NASA, sitting between John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson. I'd love to tell you that later in his life Georg Rickhey faced justice for his involvement in the death of thousands, but sadly nobody knows what happened to him after returning to the US. Probably.
I don't like that. I don't like that this guy was a criminal and, you know, had a hand in killing all these people. And the United States just took him on, and because he was, you know, probably a scientist, smart.
Yeah. And
used him for that program. And he never got prosecuted. That was just it. He was just acquitted.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because they yeah, that's true. But I mean, they could be thinking he was acquitted. So you know,
he's a good guy.
Yeah. Or even if they didn't believe that that's what they can put out.
Right. Exactly.
So it doesn't make it look as bad. So I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I have to make sure I got to say that.
No, I know.
But yeah.
He took on a death of thousands, but sadly nobody knows what happened to him after returning to the US. Probably took on a new identity and, you know, lived his life. Later in the video, the roles are reversed, and we get some cathartic violence with the inmates executing a couple of Nazis via shooting them in the face. Yeah, now, before we talk a bit more about this part specifically, let's look at the last scene, where we see the band dressed in 70s clothing, clashing with the police and kidnapping our Germania figure. Pretty unambiguously a reference to the RAF, the Red Army faction, which was a left-wing extremist terrorist organization active in West Germany in the 70s. The group understood itself as communist, anti-imperialist city guerrillas and was responsible for the death of over 30 people and also causing one of the biggest crises in modern German history, known as the German Autumn. The period started with the kidnapping of German industrial leader Hans-Martin Schleyer in September 1977, during which 3 police officers and his driver were killed. The goal of the terrorists in this case was to negotiate the release of some already arrested members of the organization, but the German government at the time did not budge and was not willing to agree to an exchange. Tensions increased when about a month later, members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine hijacked a German airplane, making the same demands among other things and threatening to execute all 86 hostages on board the airplane if denied. Quite the turbulent time for this young republic, and needless to say, the political climate got heated up, with left-wing politicians being accused of harboring terrorist sympathies, and a general feeling of unsafety among the population. The German Autumn ended when counter-terrorist special forces stormed the captured airplane, freeing all 86 hostages, the earlier mentioned incarcerated members of the RAF killing themselves when hearing of this development, and Hans-Martin Schleyer being executed by his captors. Now, there are a couple of things more one could talk about, like a scene where presumably a witch is burned at the stake with Nazis burning books right next to it. There's a medieval battle scene in which Germania resurrects the fallen knights while a zeppelin passes by, and there's a scene at the end where Germania gives birth to a bunch of Leonbergers, which is a German dog breed. But these are really more open to Germania gives birth to a bunch of Leonbergers.
We were wondering about that.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like German Shepherd, just as a symbol of... Yeah, and I wasn't sure if these were... At first I was thinking these were like space people.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I think these are just scientists.
Right.
Okay. And I don't know the guy in the red.
German dog breed. But these are really more open to interpretation.
The one in the red?
Yeah, it almost looks like a bishop type hat.
A cardinal or something?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Well, then he has on the microscope
like
on his eyes.
As if he's the doctor getting ready to take that baby out.
Yeah.
Or
to a bunch of Leonbergers, which is a German dog breed. But these are really more open to interpretation than the ones we discussed, so you can comment your own speculation about them. Before we now try to get at what this video and the song lyrics are supposed to say, we'll have to take a look at the politics of the people starring in it. But for the uninitiated, the question in the back of your mind is probably, is Rammstein a Nazi band? And this accusation is something the band has been feeling the sting of pretty much since its founding. It reached its height when the band used footage from Leni Riefenstahl's Nazi propaganda film about the Summer Olympics in 1936 in their music video for the song Stripped. But even if you're unaware of this controversy, there are several things that might make you question their political leanings, like the rolled R or the hyper-clear pronunciation of the lyrics, things often associated with the very specific speech pattern in Adolf Hitler's speeches. There's also...
Oh. I gotta remember that. I don't want to roll my R's.
Oh my gosh.
I
naturally do because we're studying Spanish, so
I know.
I feel like I've done that too.
I've done that.
Because I don't know how to pronounce.
I don't know. Okay.
That's interesting. You didn't know that.
Yeah.
Things often associated with the very specific speech pattern in Adolf Hitler's speeches. There's also the band logo imitating the shape of a Balkenkreuz, often used by the German armed forces. Besides these things, the whole video to Deutschland is dripping with national romanticism, which usually wouldn't cause such a scandal depending on its context, but when combined with imagery from the Third Reich, things get murky. There's the risk of presenting the pretended superiority of the Nazis as rooted in reality or to make them seem tempting, like with these shots. It looks more like a movie production than a reflection of reality. Or just look at this picture used for the promotion of the song. Now, the band is kind of notorious for not giving many interviews and almost never speaking about their political leanings, but in an interview with the Rolling Stone, they had this to say when asked about the controversy of using footage from a Riefenstahl film. The intensity of the reaction really surprised us. Back then, we sincerely thought this will find a way of working itself out. We are from the East and grew up as socialists. Back then, we were either punks or goths. We hate Nazis. We come from an entirely different culture. In the past, we fought with these right-wing idiots, and we would do so today. Well, that seems pretty unambiguous. Rammstein says, punch Nazis. There you go. After this controversy, Rammstein sought to clean the table in releasing a song called Links 2, 3, 4, or Left 2, 3, 4, with a marching beat and the lyrics, they want my heart on the right side, but when I look down, it is beating left. If we look beyond what is shown in the video to Deutschland and combine it with the act...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
They're just trying to make a statement, and that's what it's all, this whole thing, it's shock. What's it called? Shock.
Shock and awe?
No, it's like shock.
Shock factor?
Yeah, like a shock factor. Yeah, I guess that's what it's called. Is what they're just trying to do, just make a point. So from my point of view, I someone was saying that there was some controversy with them, but I think it was something else, had to do with nothing about their song. But so I think that it's just shock value. That's what they're trying to do. That's what the word I was looking for. Shock value. But with good intentions. So it's always about the intention that's behind the song that's more important. And that's why I think, that's why overall I thought when the people were ridiculing their music, they did have good intentions behind it, but they meant to really catch you and get your attention and help you understand and work through it by being shocking. And sometimes that's what needs to happen. You need to bring up the ugly in order to work through it. And get past it instead of just burying it in the sand.
Basically, what you're saying is you can have a great message, but if nobody's watching, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So they get people watching with the shock value.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they had good intentions.
Right.
Actual lyrics, we can clearly see Rammstein's opposition to nationalism and right-wing views shimmering through. Probably the best example is their decision to choose a black actress to portray the personification of Germany. During the Third Reich, German society understood itself as a community defined by its ethnicity as well as a shared past and destiny. All employees and officials in the public sector had to own a certificate proving their membership of the Aryan race, sometimes tracing their roots back to the 1700s. Now, of course, a document like this isn't handed out anymore since there is no requirement to become a German that's connected to your skin color. But is that really true? If it was, there wouldn't even be a question of why Germania is portrayed by a black woman. Why shouldn't that be the case? You can be black and be as much a German as everyone else. Maybe you even caught yourself asking the question of why a black woman is in this music video. Looking at the pattern of the lyrics, the song...
I did.
You did?
Yeah. Did you? Well, I like while she was the main person.
Yeah.
You know, so... Yeah, but so you did. I mean, we both kind of did. So
right, yeah, I guess we both kind of did.
Yeah.
Someone had said in the comments that it was kind of like a slap or like a I don't know if it's a slap in the face, but like a I don't know. I can't think of all how you use these phrases, but basically because the perfect German is blonde, blue eyes, and so it's like in your face.
Right.
It's like, in your face. We're representing a Germanic woman as black.
Yeah.
And a woman.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Starts out with the lead singer saying the first part of a sentence and the choir repeating the first word of what he is about to say next. Here's an example. The lead singer says the word you with the choir repeating you have directly after, and then the lead singer continuing with the sentence have cried a lot. We're always led into the next part of his sentence this way. However, shortly before the first chorus, the choir following what the lead singer says don't lead into anything and seemingly just finish his sentence. With that we get the sentences, you can, I know, we are, you all remain. Now Rammstein's lyrics are meant to be ambiguous, but this part specifically combined with their choice to cast a black woman as Germania, which is also on the cover of the single, seems to get at the underlying attitude in Germany of what a German is. Namely that the values you hold or how much you might benefit the country only comes secondary to what you look like in determining if you are German or not, at least subconsciously. It's something not really openly said, but I assume a lot of Germans who are also people of color will have encountered this one way or another. That doesn't mean that this attitude is never openly mentioned. For instance, after our last federal election, the Speaker of Germany's far-right AfD party on a panel, during which he vehemently defended his party from accusations of racism, complained that he doesn't see enough Germans in our inner cities. How would he know who is a German citizen and who isn't? I guess I don't have to spell it out for you. While the Nazis' blood and soil rhetoric is long gone, and Germany on the whole is sensitive to exclusionary language, blind spots like judging someone by their skin color are ever present here as well as in other European countries.
And in the United States.
As well as the United States, so it's not just Germany. Not at all.
Spots like judging someone by their skin color are ever present here as well as in other European countries. And by the way, the German government still accepts the ARIA-Nachweis as an official document to prove German nationality.
Really? That's the document that they had to have to show that they oh, wow.
By the way, the German government still accepts the ARIA-Nachweis as an official document to prove German nationality, which is kind of messed up. The risk of making the Nazis seem tempting with these earlier mentioned shots is also undercut by casting a person who the Nazis would have intense disdain for. In a different part of the song, we see the band distancing themselves from nationalism in a manner that is pretty cut and dry compared to their other work. Germany, your love, is a curse and a blessing. Germany, my love, I cannot give you. From the right, German anti-nationalism is often framed as...
You understand that?
Yeah, your love is a curse and a blessing. My love, I can't give you. That it was those words that were making me believe that it was a love-hate relationship. Yeah. That they have with Germany.
Right. So it's like the fact that Germany loves me is a curse and a blessing.
And my love, I can't give you because my love for Germany has resulted in so much pain and ugliness in the past.
Yeah.
A love I cannot give you. From the right, German anti-nationalism is often framed as a kind of self-hatred due to an underlying guilt left over from the Third Reich. And despite research showing the opposite to be the case, they seemingly cannot fathom someone viewing their country of origin in a nuanced manner and not strictly positive. If we go beyond the basic understanding of a fifth grader, though, the position espoused by Rammstein and parts of the German left is obviously much more thought out than Germany is bad. The truth is that nationalism as a political force is only really powerful if there's an enemy to wield it against. Theoretically, nationalism should be inclusive, regardless of skin color, we are all part of the same nation, upholding the same values, etc. But obviously it doesn't work that way in reality. Nationalism goes hand in hand with the exclusion of others, be that an outside force like a colonialist overlord or a subset of the population not deemed to be truly part of the in-group. At the end of the second verse, we get the lyrics, Germany, Germany above everyone, which is a reference to the first verse of the Deutschland lied, which reads, Germany, Germany above all. Now again, in intention, these lyrics are not meant to show superiority over others. It was written back when the German state didn't exist yet, and this line was supposed to express the long-existing desire for a German nation-state. A translation more faithful to its intent would be realizing Germany as an idea is more important than anything else. It doesn't have the same ring to it, unfortunately. Rammstein changing the lyrics to Germany above everyone gets much closer to how the first verse of the Deutschland lied ended up being understood and used. After the takeover of the Nazi regime, they scrapped the second and third verse of the Deutschland lied, which calls for unity, justice and freedom, and only kept the first verse and combined it with the Horst Wessel lied, the anthem of the party. If there's anything to take from Germany's long and multifaceted history, it's that right-wing nationalist movements only ever lead their countries into misery and destruction. And of course, any self-espoused nationalist these days will deny this, trying to frame Germany as a historical anomaly, but we can see this trend play out from Italy, Romania, Japan, or in the language used by self-espoused nationalists today. At a certain point in time, nationalism was useful since Germany was a country in which just as much religious divisions as class divisions existed. It's also something to easily overdose on, unfortunately. All that said, if this is supposedly the message of this Rammstein song, why all this controversy? What is it about this scene that caused such an outrage? Well, nothing, to be honest. This scene, as part of the video, is largely uncontroversial in the broader German media landscape, and it makes sense for it to be there, because all the quotes I read to you in the beginning were uttered before the actual release of the song. Shortly before the song came out, the band released a little snippet from the video for promotional purposes, showing only the scene from the concentration camp and nothing else. It wasn't clear at this point in time that this scene was part of a broader tour through German history. Which is not to say the band is beyond criticism though. Releasing just this part without providing further context was obviously a marketing gimmick, because the band and label behind them knew the reaction and media storm it would cause. And while Rammstein is still a successful band, they hadn't released a studio album in over 10 years, so this was an easy way to get their name out there again. Which is an effective marketing strategy, I guess. But it's also a shitty and, above all, lazy thing to do. The band has always played with nationalist aesthetics because, in large part, it's shock rock, and in Germany that's obviously what you would do. And of course, the band is free to...
Shock rock, that's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, but
it's interesting that they did that.
It's
kind of messed up.
They cared more about that shock value than they did the sensitivity of what that could represent, especially knowing that it was just... They purposely made it a microscope instead of those people looking at it that way.
Yeah.
Which, I was bashing them for doing that, and they probably shouldn't have done that either.
Yeah. But I bet it accomplished what they wanted. But
it accomplished what they wanted, I'm sure. Yeah. Because now when that came out, everybody wanted to know what was it actually about.
And above all, lazy thing to do. The band has always played with nationalist aesthetics because, in large part, it's shock rock, and in Germany that's obviously what you would do. And of course, the band is free to do that. This marketing trick specifically just feels very cheap, while not saying anything. I think this is the part of the media analysis in which I should talk about what this piece of media means to me personally, but honestly, something like national identity is never something I thought about much. But it is without a doubt a topic much more complex in Germany than in other countries, considering how recent the Third Reich ended. What I feel like a lot of people miss regarding this discussion is that wondering about what Germany is, what values it should uphold, or even if it should exist at all, are thoughts that are older than the country itself. Germany being involved in a conversation about national identity on the regular might seem like a product of the Second World War and the atrocities committed during it, but honestly different versions of this conversation are seen all throughout Germany's history. Not only the question of if a united Germany should exist, but also how should it exist. One of the reasons the first revolution on German soil failed was because there was so much disagreement on what this new country should even be. Should it be a monarchy or a republic? Should we have a Kaiser? Should Austria be included or not? Then, a few decades later, the German nation-state is formed, but not due to a revolution from below, but by military force, with serious disagreements about if the Kaiser should be a German Kaiser or a Kaiser of Germany. A few years later, the big questions rile up the country again, like should we be a great power or a world power? Should we be part of the West or not? Then after the devastating defeat of the First World War, should we really be a republic, or isn't that something fundamentally un-German? What about all those Germans now living in lost territories? Takeover of the Third Reich, proclaiming that excluding Austria was a mistake and that they are actually Germans. On top of that, Germany's role in the world is and allegedly always has been the one of a Manichaean struggle against the Jewish race. Third Reich is defeated, Germany is split into two, with the Western side accusing the East of being nothing but a Soviet satellite state, and the East accusing the West of being the fascist successor of Nazi Germany, and round it goes. As Rammstein's video shows, there are so many different facets to German history that it's impossible to make out a single national character. Being unsure about national identity and Germany's place in the world is and always has been part of this country. One thing that has proven successful in avoiding another catastrophe is being honest with Germany's missteps on the question of what Germany should be, and not shying away from the disastrous consequences. As Rammstein does in their video, recalling Germany's past without leaving out the ugly parts is not only necessary for our own sake, but also for Europe, a project we share with others.
That's super important. And I think that's one of the problems going on right now in the United States is that they're trying to leave out the bad stuff.
Right.
And by banning certain books and, removing certain statues, all the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I have just so much respect for Germany for doing that. That's why I kind of do have respect for this ban for just throwing it out there and not being afraid to say this is the ugly part.
Yeah. Where in the United States, what they have is they have, the statues of the generals, the Confederate that, it's my understanding in Germany, there can't be any statues of Hitler and stuff like that. And they tried to remove those statues of the Confederate because of what they represented, which is a portion of an entity fighting against the United States to keep slavery. Right. So that was like a whole issue. So they were trying to get rid of that. But now you have people that are in the, presidency now and the administration who want to bring it back and put those statues back and the names on bases and everything. Yeah. So they're not trying to eliminate
We're trying to glorify
They're
it.
Embracing it.
Yeah.
And they want to do it again. They want to make America great again in their eyes.
Right. To those Civil War times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Sorry for our own sake, but also for Europe, a project we share with others.
Oh, I wanted more.
Oh, wait, keep going.
Is it over?
Going.
Okay.
Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you liked this little adventure into media analysis because there might be more to come, but I'm not so sure about that yet. A massive thank you to my patrons, especially because this took so much longer than initially anticipated. We should be able to go back to the regular schedule now, though. Something else I wanted to mention is that I often get the question if I feel like my channel gaining some popularity is an indicator of a shift in the political landscape on YouTube, and it very well might be. I'm actually not sure about that. But what I know is that I and a couple of other creators have the big advantage of a viewer base which spreads their videos far and wide. So the driving force behind this trend is actually just you folks, as far as I'm concerned. I'm always amazed at the places my content ends up being spread to, so from me to you, a sincere thank you for helping me out here. Couldn't do it without you. Also, thank you to Big Joel and H-Bomber Guy for lending me their voices for this one. Check out their channels via the video description. Links as always down below. Join the Patreon for extra content and other cool stuff. Check out their social media links, etc., etc. And I hope to see you the next time. Until then, have a good one.
All right. Man, that was really, really good.
That was good.
Like, I didn't even want it to end. I would try some more. He didn't talk about, remember we saw that thing that we thought was a spaceship?
Oh, yeah. Someone said it was a coffin. At the end?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's in the comments.
They said it was a coffin?
They said it was a coffin.
Well, it looks like it had something to do with the birth of those dogs. So it seems like that was a part of it.
Mm-hmm. It was a blend of the future
and the past.
Something, yeah. Well, you're gonna have to remind us, but it was something about it looked like a coffin.
Yeah, they'll let us know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what the people have to say here. All right, DU. I don't know what that means. Okay. Anyway.
Oh.
What?
The first one?
Oh.
I just thought.
POV. A German guy explains your own country's history to you in a foreign language.
Because he's speaking in English. I think this is why they recommended this one to us.
Yeah.
Because it was in English.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's great that he explained it in English for people outside of Germany.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we all just take a moment to appreciate the level of thought and effort that goes into pretty much every Rammstein video? Very few artists go to these lengths. Always next level. That really took
it was like thought. A movie.
It was. Yeah. I feel like I want to watch it again now.
I've been watching it.
Oh, wow.
I just have it playing.
We're supposed to be a team.
I have it playing in the office.
I know. Okay. One of my favorite visual references in the video, there are so many and they come and go so fast.
Yeah.
Was when Ruby Mosey as Germania appeared in a gold chainmail bikini with sunglasses and a fur coat, holding back 4 snarling dogs and backed by a squad of armed Bundespolizei. An obvious reference to and subversion of the statue of Victoria in a 4-horse chariot, which tops the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Man, that was really good. Statue means.
That was really good. I'm glad they suggested that. Now I have some context around that.
Yeah, now it will be kind of an interesting thing to go back and watch it again.
Yeah. All right. Well, subscribe to the channel. Like the video. We would always appreciate that. And we do have a Patreon where we have a free option and a paid option. And we also have a Discord link at either one of those, so you can come on over. We've been having a lot of people join, so it's been great. It's always fun to see somebody new in there and just hear about you and you add to the depth of the community. So come on over. All right. As always, thank you for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video.
Bye.